Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2001 action-adventure video game film, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Now, this is a movie that I have always enjoyed. I've enjoyed it since I saw it in the theater when I was a kid. I enjoyed it when I watched it on VHS multiple times when I was growing up. And I enjoy it immensely to this day. I really had a good time watching it again recently, and it's a film that I personally feel is incredibly underrated. I think this is a diamond in the rough and a hidden gem. This is a film that I do not feel deserves the bad rap that it gets. I do not feel guilty at all for liking this film. I feel this is a legitimately good movie for what it is. I honestly don't understand why this is considered to be one of the worst video game movies. Like, this is on a lot of people's lists, and I don't get it. I really don't. If you're counting the sequel, sure. If you're counting the reboot that came out this year, I'm fine with that too. Like, I totally agree and understand that. But if you're just lumping this in with the other Lara Croft films, I don't get that at all. I really don't. This is a fun, entertaining, fast-paced action adventure film that really does live up to the adventure in the title. You don't see films like this anymore, and that's a shame. I miss movies like this that were big budget action adventure films that shot on location and used the money for impressive sets, and there was spectacle, and there was action sequences that were memorable and were not necessarily realistic, but they didn't have to be, and that was a good thing because that meant that they could be more creative and do more with it. And you had a lead character who was a woman, but it wasn't this whole political bullshit. It wasn't like, oh, she's a woman and she can do everything a man can, and they weren't trying to do this whole feminist propaganda shit. They were just like, hey, she's a woman, but that's not necessarily the main focus here. She's a great character. She's a badass. She's sexy. She's confident. She's cool. And she also happens to be a woman. It wasn't like, oh, she's a woman and therefore we need to have all these other things and we need to have the movie tick all these different boxes. No. This is a film that's like, hey, this is a movie that can be enjoyed by everybody. You can find inspiration in Lara Croft if you're a young girl or if you're a boy or even if you're an adult, because this character is awesome. She's smart, she's sexy, she's confident, she can hold her own in a fight, and it's one of those characters that I feel does not get enough credit for being as fucking cool as she is, especially Jolie's performance and her role in this film. She becomes Lara Croft, and she put everything that she had into this role, and it shows. She did training with martial arts guys in order to learn how to fight. She did weapons training with weapons experts. She got in the best shape of her life after being out of shape for 2 years and not even going to the gym once. She got into this production and went in head first, and it shows. She does all of her own stunts in this movie, something that you rarely see nowadays unless it's a Mission Impossible film starring Tom Cruise. She does the impressive bungee ballet stunts in the sequence when the bad guys attack Laura's mansion, and it's just really impressive stunt work and choreography and ballet that would honestly make members of Cirque du Soleil blush. And she did the fight scenes, and she did the gunplay, and she did a really impressive stunt where the look she makes look easy but wasn't at all. There's a sequence in the Cambodian temple where Laura has to get on top of this obelisk and swing it forward into this vat of liquid in order to unlock one of the pieces of the Triangle of Light. And she has to get on top of this, ride it like a bronco, and swing it back and forth and get enough motion on it so it can collide into the basin of sorts in order for the liquid to pour out. Now, in rehearsals and things like that, the filmmakers and the stunt crew, they had a stunt woman try to do this, and she couldn't do it. She tried doing it multiple times, could not do it. Angelina Jolie, on the first take, jumps on top of this obelisk, does what you see in the film, and makes it look easy. And I mean, she did multiple things like that throughout this film that were equally as impressive. There's a sequence near the end when the whole structure that's featured in the climax, which is like this sort of planetarium, not really planetarium, but it was kind of like a, a a series of planets, like a replica of planets and stuff like that. And she gets on top of, she has to, well, there's the whole sequence where she's hanging on to it. She did herself too, which shows a lot of upper body strength. But after that, it's the whole place is going to hell in a handbasket. It's falling apart. And Angelina Jolie is running while this shit is just exploding and falling all around her. And it was all done in one take. And it's one of those things that she just did countless stuff like that. The motorcycle sequence where she's on the motorcycle and she's shooting guys in midair. And there's all these other sequences that she did all of the stunt work for. It's one of those things, it's a lost art. Nowadays, a lot of the stunt work is done in a computer or not by the actor or the actress. So I really have to point that out because I wanted to point that out early because it's one of the most impressive things about the film that honestly is kind of overlooked. Because a lot of people just look at this movie as some dumb movie and it's stupid and it doesn't and it has just a dumb plot and it doesn't take itself seriously, so therefore it's stupid and silly. And they're not giving Jolie enough credit for what she did. She busted her ass doing this movie, and she deserves every ounce of credit that she can get for doing that. And I highly recommend you watch the special features on either this disc or the Blu-ray because you'll get a newfound appreciation for Jolie and her performance in this movie. Because once you see that, you're like, wow, that girl did some work. Now, speaking of work, Simon West, I felt, did a good job directing this movie. This was a pretty impressive job for Simon West. He had not tackled a film like this with this size and scope, and I thought he handled it well. He got the most that he could out of Jolie and the other actors. This is definitely Jolie's film, and she carries it on her shoulders, and she's the reason why it's any good, to be honest. Well, I mean, there are some other reasons, like the impressive effects and the stunt work and the action sequences, but Jolie is the centerpiece, and she's the main focal point, and she's the main reason why this film works. Without her, the film doesn't work. I really don't feel anyone else that they could have went for or thought about, except for maybe Famke Janssen. She was rumored to maybe be casted in the role. Jolie, she could do all the physical stunts, and she had the charisma that this character needed. And I don't feel that some of the other actresses they considered really would have pulled that off, like Jennifer Love Hewitt, Jennifer Lopez, Rona Mitra, Elizabeth Hurley, Ashley Judd, Sandra Bullock, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Diane Lane, Demi Moore, and Denise Richards, or the British glamour models Lindsay Dawn McKenzie and Jordan. Even the creators of the game felt that Angelina Jolie was perfect casting. So I don't understand the people saying she was miscast, because even the people who created Lara Croft feel that she was the right actress for the role. And I understand there are people who felt that the actress who did the stand-in work for the game or did voiceover work, she should have been. But the thing is, sometimes you need somebody who can carry a film, who has the ability and has shown that ability to command the presence of an entire audience. And a voice actress and someone like that who just did a lot of modeling work, I don't really feel really would have done that. So No offense to the gals and the ladies who and the wonderful women who did stand-in work and did modeling for Laura and did voiceover work for Laura. No offense to them, but I personally feel that I don't think they would have been able to carry the film as well as Angelina Jolie did. Now, Simon West would not have been one of my first choices to direct this, but still, he really did a good job. He knocked it out of the park. I have to give him a lot of credit for this. I would say I like Con Air a little bit more than this, but other than Expendables 2, which I think is just okay, this is definitely his second best effort when it comes to his directorial efforts, so to speak. Features a script by Patrick Massett and John Zinman. Now, there were some other scripts that were in development before the script that was used for this film was greenlit. It went through many different drafts. There was a version in 1998 that was written by one of the guys who co-wrote Mortal Kombat Annihilation. His name was Brent V. Friedman, and I could see why they turned that down. He co-wrote Mortal Kombat Annihilation, one of the worst video game movies ever made. Thank God they didn't go with that. That probably would have been a million times worse than anybody would have ever imagined, and a million times worse than anybody says that this movie is. There was also a draft by Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote another god-awful video game movie in Street Fighter in 1994, but it was rejected by Paramount, probably for good reason. But Stephen E. D'Souza, he helped write a lot of great films early in his career, but for some reason, after Street Fighter, he just didn't have it anymore. Case in point, Judge Dredd and anything afterwards, and it's really too bad. It's like all of a sudden he lost whatever luster or whatever golden touch that he had. And then there was a final draft that was attributed to 5 writers, including Simon West. So you had Patrick Massett, who worked on it, as well as John Zinman, and then it was based on a story by Sarah B. Cooper, Mike Werb, and Michael Collery. Now, the script, I can't say for sure whether or not it's a bad adaptation of the game because I haven't played the game. Maybe that's another reason why I'm not very hard on the film. I haven't played Lara Croft games. I want to play some Lara Croft games because I'm a big fan of games like Lara Croft with the action-adventure sort of stuff, but I just never really had the time to or had any copies of Lara Croft games to play. I'm going to be honest. I can't sit here and lie and say I played Lara Croft games. I really didn't. But that being said, I still feel it's one of the better adaptations because from what I've seen and from the clips that I've seen and from the playthroughs that I've seen from other people in my life, I feel that this film captures the spirit of the character well, and sometimes that's all I want. That's all you could ask for out of a video game movie. Even if I had played the games, I would still like this film because I would feel that it captured the spirit of the character and the spirit of the games well enough. Maybe it wasn't a 100% adaptation of the game. Doesn't necessarily have to be. That's something that a lot of video game adaptations miss, is recapturing the spirit of the game and of the characters. They just have the characters and the concept and nothing else. And that's why a lot of video game movies fail, is because of that. Now, the script, the artifact that she's looking for, the Triangle of Light, has a sort of Illuminati sort of thing, and it's a time travel thing, and it was kind of just, it was eh. The artifact was eh. I mean, the journey that she went on and the adventure she went on to find it, that was awesome. But the artifact itself, it just kind of, it was just there. The whole time travel stuff too, meeting up with her father, kind of reminded me of Contact, and it wasn't as disappointing as Contact, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, could have been worse, but could have been a little bit better. I honestly like the artifact in Cradle of Life more because it's Pandora's box. I think that's more intriguing. It's like they just created some random artifact in order to throw in the movie for Laura to find, and I felt that they should have went with something that actually existed or was inspired by something that existed, but that's just me personally. Now, and as well as the script too, I felt the film really falters when it comes to its villains, when it comes to Laura's adversaries. No offense to Iain Glen, but his character sucks. Manfred Powell is a entirely forgettable villain. This is a guy who should be a henchman. He should be a main henchman for a for an antagonist, for a main antagonist. He should not be the main bad guy. He doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the chops. He's a poor man Sean Bean. This character should be cannon fodder or something, or show up and be there and be a foil for the hero for a little bit and then die halfway through the movie. This guy should not be the villain. He should not be the main guy. He doesn't have it in him, and it shows. I mean, there's even a scene near the end of the film where there's a knife that's being thrown at him that could possibly kill him, and he reacts to it as if he forgot an item on his grocery list. He's just like, "Oh, yeah, like, oh, you know." Is this one of those things that's like, really? Come on, man. Like, there's a knife about to fly straight towards you, stab you in the chest, possibly kill you, and you react as the same way that you would if you realized that you forgot to put creamed corn on your grocery list when you were at the grocery store. It's just one of those. It's like, fuck it, come on, man. It's just, I mean, that type of performance is throughout the entire movie. Just sleepwalking through the film. It's just, Laura deserved a better bad guy, a better villain. She deserved a Moriarty to her Sherlock Holmes, or a Darth Vader to her Luke Skywalker. It's really a shame that this film does not have an iconic villain to go with its iconic hero. Daniel Craig also is a character that they're trying to be like, is he a bad guy or is he a good guy? I could care less. And Craig, it was kind of fun to see him pre-Bond, but his performance wasn't the best. And excuse me, I'm just getting indigestion just thinking about just how just really lame and lackluster a lot of the other characters in this film were, other than Lara Croft. And maybe your father, played by John Voight, who played Richard Croft. And the sequences with those two characters together is great because there's genuine chemistry and electricity there because they're father and daughter. And I thought that was really good casting. But Daniel Craig has no chemistry with Lara Croft, no chemistry with Jolie, and his American accent is awful, and he doesn't really have much of a presence. Iain Glen, like I already said, he's a poor man Sean Bean, and the characters that are her foils, not necessarily foils, but like her sidekicks, they're not that much either. Noah Taylor as Bryce Turing and Chris Barrie as Hillary, her butler. They just come across as comic relief and they don't add much to it. So, yeah, the script didn't do the best job with the other characters. I have to be honest. It did a fine job with Laura, and with her father and the whole thing with the whole dynamic with her and her father, but everything else really left a lot to be desired. Another thing that I felt really fell flat when it comes to the film was the score by Graeme Revell. Now, it's not entirely his fault because he had to do this last minute. There was another composer who worked on a score that was not accepted, that the studio turned down. So he had to do a lot of stuff last minute. And I felt he did a good job for stuff when it comes to doing a score last minute, but overall, it's a very in one ear, out the other score that doesn't add a lot of mood or atmosphere in the movie. It's just really bland, and I'm using that word repeatedly because it fits it perfectly. Milquetoast, just totally tired score, techno score. It was a techno score that you heard a million times in commercials and other movies in the early 2000s. It's incredibly dated, and yeah, it didn't really fit the film, I thought, either. So that was kind of disappointing. The film could have used a better score, But that being said, there's a part of the main titles that I love. It's got this epic adventure feel to it. It really does tie into the game well. But for some reason, the rest of the movie doesn't have a score like that, and I don't get it. And there was also an alternate opening sequence for the film that was phenomenal. It was so fantastic. I highly recommend you seek that out because it's really worth a watch. It's a great opening sequence. I love the concept that they had for the opening titles that they did not use. It's a POV shot of a journey through this tomb, and then once the titles are revealed on screen, you realize that that whole time that the camera was panning through this tomb, it was the main titles for the film. And I thought that was just a brilliant, really cool idea. And the score was memorable, and it invoked a lot of adventurous vibes, and it wasn't used for the film for that most part. And I mean, for the most part, and that sucks. It really does. The editing I thought was tight and taut by Dallas S. Pewitt and Glen Scantlebury. The cinematography by Peter Menzies Jr. I thought was pretty impressive. I thought it was pretty stellar, especially when it comes to the on-location shots in Cambodia. This was one of the rare films that was shot in Cambodia. They hadn't shot a lot of films in Cambodia in a long time, and I felt it really did. The cinematography did a great job capturing the beauty of this landscape and of the temples that they actually shot at, real-life temples. I also want to give a lot of credit to the set designers and the art directors, and the production design, just on point. There's another thing you don't see a lot of in films nowadays is real sets, built in sound stages, not with a green screen and with a computer. I mean, there's something to be said about that when you have real actors interacting with real environments instead of real actors interacting with fake environments. I mean, yeah, it's easier to do, and yeah, they're getting better, but it's still CGI, and you can still tell. I know it's more expensive, but it's worth it. It really is. And speaking of stuff that's worth it, the CGI. The CGI effects in this are some of the best early 2000s CGI effects I've seen. They hold up really well. The stuff with the stone monkeys that come to life and the chimeras and so on and so forth, they have a nice weight to them. And I was really honestly impressed by the CGI in this. For the most part, I mean, I keep mentioning for the most part, but that's true. I mean, for the most part, I was impressed with a lot of the CGI for the film. The only exceptions I can think of is like there's a scene near the end where one of the pieces of the triangle is in this sort of mercury fluid, and that didn't look very good. But other than that, I really thought it was amazing, and I think audiences back in 2001 would have had their jaws dropped wide open when they saw it in the theater. I know I did when I saw it in the theater. I was like, wow, that's really impressive. And I thought it was the whole action sequence with the stone monkeys is really cool, and Laura using her two guns and everything. And yeah, the action sequences are really fun and well put together, well crafted. They're over the top, but I like that. I really do. There's not a shit ton of slow-mo. It's fast-paced. It's in your face, and I love that. I love that it's in your face and fast-paced. And crazy and out there. I mean, they really did a lot with the locations. Like in the climax, they go to an actual glacier and real life location in like a really frozen environment, and actually use these land to sea vehicles, like these amphibious vehicles, to drive up onto the ice. And that's real dogs that Laura is riding when she's getting away at the end of the film. And I mean, it's one of those things and I mean, just the concept of that, like just getting these dogs and mushing them, like while there's explosions in the background. It's a total fun comic book type of movie. And the video game was, from what I've seen and what I've heard, is every bit as over the top. So it's not like the film wasn't capturing that vibe of the game. And yeah, it's just one of those movies that I just really enjoy. And yeah, it's got its flaws, but they don't affect my enjoyment of the film that much. They really don't. Um, the film did decent in the box office. It made over $200 million on a $115 million budget. Made even more with rentals and home video buys, but it could have done a little bit better, but it still did pretty well. It still did well enough for Paramount. I mean, it inspired a theme park ride at Kings Island in 2002. It was called Lara Croft the Ride. It lasted for like 5 years, so it didn't last that long, which is too bad. It was one of the first of its kind. It was a gondola ride. It wasn't a roller coaster, it was a dark gondola ride, which is really interesting. And there was a lot of money put into it, and there's an excellent video on the ride, which I might put in the link down below uh, for you to check out, because there's so much more info in that. And it didn't last long because Tomb Raider as a franchise kind of lost its luster after Cradle of Life, understandably so, because that movie sucks. But that's why it was taken away, the Lara Croft theming, and then it was turned into something called a crypt, and then it was used for other venues and so on and so forth. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun thing to maybe mention, a little bit of trivia. There was a Lara Croft Tomb Raider ride. And for a film that's 115 minutes, actually it's 100 minutes, goes by really quick. I thought it was a well-paced film. I was moderately, well, I wouldn't say moderately. I was pleased with the pacing for the film. There were a couple moments that could have been tightened up a little bit, but for the most part, it starts off well. It keeps going at a quick pace, and once you have the attack on the mansion, it really doesn't let up that much. There might be a little bit of a dead portion after that, but once the action moves to Cambodia, it doesn't stop at that point. So, yeah, it's definitely a film that I would say, especially compared to the sequel or the reboot, is not really boring. There's not very many dull moments to be found in this movie. I mean, even the opening is cool. Like, she's facing off against this robot, and it's a training robot, and I thought that was a cool idea. I mean, there's a lot of cool things in this movie. Not only is Laura herself cool, but like there's a lot of other cool things in the film too. So yeah, I really don't know what else to say about Lara Croft Tomb Raider, except if I were to rate out of 5 stars, I give it 4 out of 5. I really enjoy the film. The only issues I have with it are the villain and the supporting cast, and some bits where the film kind of slows down a little bit. But overall, I really enjoy the film. I think it's a terrific Tomb Raider movie. I think it's a terrific source of entertainment, and I really do feel that it's definitely worth your time. It's a terrific way to spend your time. It's a movie that I think is worth another look if you weren't a fan of it, and if it's a film you haven't seen because of its reputation, I definitely recommend it. So anyway, thank you for watching, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.